Lords of the Fallen. Is this just another Dark Souls? And if it is, and it's good, do we even care, honestly?
If at first you don't succeed, try again. While 2014's Lords of the
If at first you didn't succeed copying Dark Souls, trying again, because, you know, at some point you're gonna nail it.
Fallen was one of the earliest to take a stab at recreating From Software's Lightning in a Bottle, it didn't quite hit that high mark. Nearly a decade and about 1 million Souls-like copycats later, there's perhaps no better time for its follow-up to take a second swipe. And thankfully, this new Lords of the Fallen confidently lands its strike.
Really? All right.
Okay.
Its dual world is absolutely awesome to explore. Build crafting is diverse and complex, and combat is so smooth and satisfying that I'm willing to forgive all the ways it cribs from its contemporaries.
I guess.
Some pretty severe performance issues and bugs, as well as disappointingly easy boss fights, means this latest thrust isn't quite a fatal blow, but even so, I expect to spend many more hours impaling enemies and exploring every nook of its cleverly split world.
Alright.
I also feel like for a lot of the bosses and everything, a lot of the people come at the bosses and they say the bosses are easy, but they're easy because you've played every Souls-like game since 2012, right?
Well, yeah. They're easy because Dark Souls is not a hard game. If you think Dark Souls is a hard game, come here. Don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you. You're just a fucking loser. That's reality, okay? Name me a single boss in Dark Souls that has more than 4 mechanics. Oh, but this boss turns into a different form at 50% HP, and then it turns its 4 mechanics into 3 different mechanics. Dodge, 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 run around in a circle while you see every single mechanic that the boss has. Considering they're all pretty easy, they're big, they're choreographed, there's no way to mistake them. Congratulations, in 5 minutes you have learned the boss. Now maybe it's gonna take you like 5 minutes to learn how to actually fight it and play around it, but still, you have learned the boss, congratulations. Dark Souls is a piss-easy game. There is nothing you can do to prove me wrong here, okay? If you think bosses with 4 mechanics are hard, go play Lost Ark, lose to the first campaign boss because 10 mechanics are way too hard for you, and then cry about it online.
Elden Ring bosses are too hard.
Lords of the Fallen is yet another action RPG Souls-like, complete with an unsettling fantasy setting.
I mean, there you have it. Proof that it's easy. Asmongold says it's easy. Asmongold is an old man past his prime, pretty much almost turning into sand at this point. Past his prime, he wants to play pay-to-win games, where pay-to-win is okay, and he wants to get carried in dungeons, and he doesn't even play retail any longer because it's too hard, bosses have 3 mechanics, it's too hard. And this man right here can finish Dark Souls, and has done it constantly. Can you imagine that? Yeah, that's all the proof you will ever need.
Other players invading your game, and of course, lots of dying.
Yeah, that shit was
annoying. A
annoying.
lot is borrowed from FromSoft classics, but there's also quite a bit of unique stuff to get excited about too. That includes things like some super cool dual reality shenanigans, or a nifty magical lamp that lets you flay the souls right out of your enemies. Those who played the original Lords of the Fallen will definitely hear NPCs talk about some familiar setting lore.
The time of Adir's righteous return is nigh.
Or see really cool and recognizable sights, like this giant outstretched hand of a fallen god in the distance.
That is cool.
Yeah, I think that the visuals for the game and like the spectacle of it are really good. I remember I felt the same way with that myself.
This is essentially a reboot rather than a sequel.
Yeah.
The fresh story it tells using refurbished bits is much better than its predecessor too, with a world that feels much more fleshed out. There's some interesting characters here and there, and some cool lore as you meet various factions that you can side with or work against.
You know full well the agony Gerlinda can inflict on you.
Even if that stuff sometimes feels buried under a mountain of generic dark
Ooh,
fantasy
that's cool.
gobbledygook.
I don't care.
I like fantasy gobbledygook, though.
If I see this, I'm happy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I look at this, I'm happy.
Yeah, it looks good.
That's it.
Though Lords of the Fallen certainly borrows a lot from its genre peers in this way, its biggest
That was
original
cool.
idea is
Whatever
also its
that
best.
was.
Axiom, the physical land most people perceive, lies atop this ghostly world of dark abominations and creepy eyeballs called Umbral, which you can swap to using a magic lantern. As you run around killing
I mean, that's cool, but I'm not gonna lie. It already sounds tedious as he is explaining it to me. It just sounds tedious.
bosses and kicking scrubs off of ledges, you'll need to navigate both, which adds a really novel
Dead
new way to
waifu.
explore the environment.
Nice.
For example, a broken bridge might block your progress in the normal world, but be crossable in Umbral. This mechanic has enormous impact on nearly every aspect of Lords of the Fallen. From
Yeah, I really like this. You know what it kind of reminded me of? It reminded me of, like, you know, like
TDM?
in Legend of Zelda, where at the beginning of the game, there would be areas that you would be able to access with the hook shot, but you didn't have the hook shot, so, like, you'd go back and it, like, would change the area.
Yeah, you know, like Castlevania, let's see, Blood Omen, every game back from that time, you know? Yep. But no, that's not even close to what's happening here. Asmon, please, concentrate.
Reminded me a lot of that.
combat where normally imperceivable enemies become a major threat when you enter Umbral, to exploration, since each area essentially has two versions, warranting multiple runs through the same
Metroidvania?
section
Yeah.
to see what you missed.
Like, Blasphemous said stuff like that, too.
Okay, what did that do? Oh, but not gonna see out of me.
It's a shame, though, that Lords of the Fallen doesn't quite seem capable of supporting its cross-dimensional ambitions from a technical standpoint,
How's
as
that?
it suffers from some pretty serious performance issues. Even with my GeForce RTX 4090 GPU and Ryzen 9 7950X
Bro, is he just now saying a bunch of random letters? Bro, my X20 Series V8 is currently handling everything with motor cooling, inspirational, a hard drive SSD capabilities. I have no problem playing Lords of the Fallen, okay?
X3D CPU, I encountered stuttering and dropped frames on a regular basis.
This is fair, and especially because this review probably came out.
I mean, yeah, the shadow limitations are clearly the next generation's biggest faults, and the SPU usage just completely destroys the CPU capabilities of hard light rendering. It's true.
Whenever the final copy wasn't ready, because you remember whenever you go back and you watch my video, like, the cinematics were really choppy and really bad. That's true. They weren't optimized. So hopefully it's fixed. Yeah, but, like, what I'm saying is, like, whenever they recorded this review, it might not have been fixed in this review that they're going off of.
Especially after prolonged sessions, and those problems were shared in some form or another by everyone I played with.
Ooh,
it's
that's
especially
painful.
frustrating when lost frames lead to taking hits I otherwise may have avoided, or when my co-op partners got killed after their game turned into a
I mean, if you're playing this game in a co-op partner, you kind of deserved worse than life, I ain't gonna lie.
slideshow during multiplayer.
I don't know. I just thought I was watching a Lies of P boss movement. Yeah, that seemed normal to me.
I'm not usually one to whinge about performance benchmarks or less than perfect frame rates, but these were so consistent and impossible to ignore that it was like eating a delicious meal with
By the way, when are we gonna talk about the fact that all these games are literally the exact same thing? Not from the combat perspective, but even from the story perspective. AK, there is no story. You randomly wake up somewhere, the world is a complete disaster, and now you need to kill bosses for some fucking unknown reason. Are we ever gonna talk about the fact that all these games are, you know, completely story-wise the exact same shit? Something happened, world's on fire, boo-hoo, you're somehow the chosen one. Yo, come on.
Severe toothache.
The dick in the
Thankfully,
salad.
Lords of the Fallen's otherwise lovely areas are still a ton of fun to explore when its frame rate manages to behave. From the fiery ashes of the city of Calrath to the
It does
treacherous
look
steps
good,
of a
though,
monastery
really
in the
good.
mountains. Level design is some of the best of the genre in
Ooh, it's a
recent
doggo.
memory, with interesting and often
I agree. I think I absolutely fucking hated that area with like that was on the side of a mountain, but man, was it well designed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really well.
I
I
guess
was
so.
impressed.
breathtaking environments, tons of secrets to discover, and loads of unique enemies to fight, introduced one at a time via mini-boss fights throughout the roughly 40-hour campaign.
40 hours, that's pretty good.
Damn,
Taking
he's doing
down
no damage.
armies of wretched skeletal abominations is a lively whirlwind of blades and flails being swung and parried, making it play more smoothly than the vast majority of its peers.
Yeah, a lot of the From Software like Souls-like games, or not From Software, but the Souls-like games, they have problems with like the inner like the super precise interactions between like different characters, or between NPCs, or between like you and an environment.
Oh, fanboys are just gonna say, well, you have to get good.
Even if that dance feels extremely conventional at this point. You can be a brawny bruiser wielding the all-reliable sword and board, this quick and precise Bloodborne dude, or a variety
Just
of
called it the
ranged
same
magic
thing I did,
users
yeah.
with cool but by-the-numbers abilities,
Wow.
like covering levels in fire and lava, or blessing you and your allies with health-regenerating effects.
That sounds
Yeah.
kind of good.
It's also great that many of the areas you'll fight your way through are legitimately challenging, often filled with
Yeah, they are. The areas in this game were very hard.
elite enemies who swarm you with devastating attacks in claustrophobic environments that have numerous ways to get yourself killed.
Yeah.
Really, the only issue is that enemies are as dumb as a bag of hair, which isn't exactly a unique problem in the genre, but it's always amusing to see these morons try to figure out how to navigate the world's geometry, only to stand in place as you stab them repeatedly. Not
I don't even consider that a problem, to be honest with you. I really
Yeah.
don't, because like every
Honestly,
single
kinda
Souls-like game has
same.
this. Remember whenever Taurus Demon just jumped off the edge whenever Emiru was fighting him? Right? I mean, like, there's a million of these fucking things that happen. And like, if the thing is that there's a certain type of jankiness that actually makes a game kind of fun and cool. Like the fact that you can get Taurus Demon to jump off there. This is not super cool, so hopefully they fix it. But I think that glitching stuff out like that is fine.
content with just being awesome for exploration, your magical lamp and its relationship to the parallel umbral realm is also quite useful in combat, primarily because you can use its soul flay ability to rip out an enemy's soul, stopping them in their tracks and providing ample time to dish out damage. Also, some enemies
Probably
will
learn
have
how to do that.
That sounds like a pure cheese mechanic.
supernatural resistance that makes them nigh invincible. The only remedy being using your lamp to cast light on nearby hidden eyeballs to strip them of that protection. Finding ways to play with the dual reality swapping during combat really drives home just how dope that mechanic is.
Okay.
Obviously, no Souls-like would be complete without epic boss fights against disgusting monstrosities, and
Okay.
Lords of the
Sure.
Fallen has some cool ones. Unfortunately, unlike
Stab
the
her.
levels preceding them, they're not very challenging at all. Every boss comes at you with slow and telegraphed moves, surprisingly reasonable health bars,
Just like
and
Dark
plenty of
Souls.
breaks in the action to heal up thanks to the simple AI.
And if you're gonna tell me, no, Dark Souls doesn't have slow, you're just so fucking stupid. You don't even know when the animation starts. Every single attack in Dark Souls is the slowest thing I have ever seen in my life. When the Dark Souls boss starts an attack, I can go masturbate, drive to the fucking McDonald's, get myself killed, get reincarnated, in India as a girl, get killed because I was reincarnated as a girl, reincarnate again, and still be back on time to dodge the attack. If you don't think Dark Souls has the most predictable and longest animations of attacks, you just don't know when the animation starts. Because the reality is, Dark Souls animations don't start when the enemy, starts swinging. They have started 5 seconds before the enemy has started swinging.
Making death
I'm gonna have to say that having abilities be telegraphed isn't an L to me. I think that's a W. Yeah, I'm a fan of having abilities be telegraphed, guys.
If
I
they're
think that's
done good, yeah, that's
a pretty
fine.
rare occurrence against them.
I mean, also, yes, if an ability is telegraphed, that doesn't make it easy. That doesn't make it easy to hard. Good abilities are telegraphed well. You know that they're happening, and now you need to react to it in a proper manner. Things being telegraphed is not bad if it's done well. Well,
It's
nothing's
still
bad if
entertaining
it's
to
done
take
well.
on enormous beasts, despite them being pushovers, but even some of the more unique fights seem subpar compared to the bar set by recent Souls-likes. There's also just
I would rather have a fight be easy and fair than hard and unfair, or frustrating and annoying. I think that a lot of games that
Yeah,
are like Dark
that's
Souls
good.
clones games, they fall into the trap of making the game very hard whenever Dark Souls itself is not very hard. It's challenging, but it's rewarding.
Oh, and by the way, yeah, there are some attacks in Dark Souls and Souls-like games that are actually fast. But you need to understand that those attacks don't happen at random. Most of those attacks happen when you're behind the boss, when you're in a specific location to the boss, or when nothing has happened for far too long of a time, and you're just trying to run. Then the bosses use those fast attacks. They're all triggerable, essentially.
And fair. And I think that if you make a game that adds in like mechanics that are kind of unfair and frustrating, then I don't think that really makes a fight better, even if it makes it more difficult to do.
Also, this guy's playing
pretty
multiplayer,
sizable
though.
layer of jank around this otherwise awesome package. I saw a few game crashes, had cool combat encounters ruined when enemies got stuck helplessly in the environment, was locked out of certain button commands like blocking for stretches of time, and more.
I never had that happen.
Sometimes Lords of the Fallen has original Dark Souls energy in a pretty unflattering way.
That's good, though.
Playing with a friend can make some of those rough edges
Yeah, I do feel like kind of sometimes the movement you can accidentally like roll off of something because of like how unrestrained it is.
even more noticeable, since it introduces other questionable quirks, like how co-op partners are tethered to the host and get teleported if they stray too far, which is accompanied by a loading screen. But those
Okay.
loading screens often take just long enough for the host to have traveled out of sight again by the time you load back in, leading to yet another loading screen. But teaming up with a friend is still a good time. And what
Yo, Lords of the Fallen, they knew that the Starfield experience is good.
played of New Game Plus so far has me and my squad quite excited to go back through some of the areas and enemies, with new lore, a whole new skill tree to experiment with, and of course, more difficult baddies to slay.
That's cool.
That increased difficulty hasn't made any of the boss fights very challenging yet, which is a bummer, but the stretches between them are worth it on their own. Lords of the Fallen is a great Souls-like, and its killer new idea of
Right.
swapping between two versions of the world to solve puzzles and slay
That's, by the way, completely not a new mechanic in any way. Multiple games have done that before.
enemies is an excellent twist to set it apart from the pack. That concept is unfortunately hamstrung a bit by numerous, highly annoying technical challenges and weak boss fights. But awesome explorable areas and fantastic build crafting more than make up for those shortcomings. If like
I feel like this is something that happens with a lot of games, is that it feels to me that like some games are, it feels like they're held to a standard of like graphical quality and like performance that other games aren't held to. Like
Yeah,
there have been a lot of
and
games
that's
recently
fine.
that have come out that have had massive performance issues, like Jedi Survivor, Starfield, like Wild Hearts on PC. Wu Long had this problem too, and it's like sometimes people just like ignore these, but then with other games it's like this is the main thing that's wrong with them. I wish that there was like more of like a uniform way that we can look at like performance issues for games, because I feel like it's just always, it's like the standard is applied unevenly.
You're a sucker for a quality action RPG, even amid a
an
clear
eight.
overabundance of them.
Wow.
This reboot is well worth your time. For more, check out.
So that just means that the bugs that you encountered here are not that, you know, often, I guess?
Our reviews of
And that's
Forza
it?
Motorsport and Assassin's Creed Mirage. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
I think this is a decent review. I mean, overall, like,
Yeah.
it seems like he played a lot of co-op, and so the bosses were probably going to be easier if you're playing them with co-op. I think that kind of makes sense.
Aren't the bosses a complete joke in any Souls game if you're playing co-op, though? Aren't they pretty much just like an absolute clown fiesta?
I also don't think it's a problem. Like, Lies of P bosses were extremely hard, but as I said, I think that the reason that they were hard wasn't really a good reason. And I think that if you really want to look at some of the best boss fights, I think that you should look at Dark Souls 3 and you should look at Sekiro. Those are some of the best boss.
Okay, Boomer. Relax. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. You don't have to tell us one more time about how you woke up dreaming about, you know, how good Sekiro is, okay? And then just pull out another strain of hair. I think it's fine, Asmon. Relax, okay? Anyway, this was Quizzer Citizen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.